many of you are familiar with Rankin and Bass? Some of you might be like, I don't know what that is. So Rankin and Bass was an animation company that was around in like the 60s and the 70s. They did a lot of stop motion animation. You're probably familiar with a lot of the different stop motion animation Christmas specials that they did, like Santa Claus is Coming to Town and The Life and Times of Santa Claus and like some of these other stuff. And of course, they did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which is my favorite one. And there's all these other variations that they've done for like continuations of Rankin and Bass stuff, and those are still very popular and played almost every year at like Christmas and such. Um, I know they also did like animated shows as well, but they got their start with the stop motion animation, and of course in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer there is a song that is sung that is called Silver and Gold. Well, I don't have the rights to that, and I highly doubt any of you want me to sing anytime soon, so we won't do that. But we end up seeing this video is going to be about Silver and Goldie couples. So, no, Silver's Rayleigh and Goldie Roger, they were not a couple. They were best friends, they were co-captains, they were not a couple. But each of them did fall in love. Silver's Rayleigh, or Dark King Rayleigh, second hand, the King of the Pirates, co-captain of the Rogers Pirates, whatever variation you want to put him as. He is married to Shaku, if I can say her name correctly, Shaku Yaku, or Shaki, as she's referred to as. We, of course, have them, and then, of course, we have Goldie Roger and Portcullis de Rouge. So, first we're going to talk about Rayleigh and Shaki, since we kind of are introduced to them in that order. So, what we have is, of course, we introduce to Shaki first. We're kind of told a little bit about Rayleigh by Hotchon when the crew save him and Kami and everything from Duval and such. And he's like, well, I have this friend that coats ships off, coats ships, and he is in Sabaody, and he'll coat your ship for you. And they head into Sabaody, and Luffy and Brook and Chopper and Hotchon make their way to, and I think Kami and Poppy were there too, and they make their way to, Shaki's ripoff bar, in one of the orchards, and that was it orchard? Was that the correct term for what they're called in Sabaody? I don't remember, but makes their way there. And their introduction to Shaki, and I love her, is like she's beating up guys that were not paying her what they should because she made the stuff too expensive anyway. And she's like, just give me a second while I beat them up, and then and then we can talk. Okay, that's fine. And then like Hotshot is just like so used to this. He's just like, okay, that's fine. And he goes sits, and like I think Luffy and Chopper and Brook are just like, what the frick just happened? And like, Shaki deals with these other patrons and like kicks them out of the bar. I'm assuming after she like takes all their money. Because that seems to be her MO. As awesome as she is. She then, talks to them and everything, like catches up with Hotchon and everything. And she, with Hachi, and she's like, and they're like, well, Hotchon's like, well, I was trying to find Rayleigh so he could kind of coat their ship, and so he could coat their ship for them so they can get headed on to Fishman Island. She's like, oh, well, he's kind of been gone for 6 months, probably off gambling somewhere and shacking up with some random woman. He's fine, though. It's his pirate heart. He just wanders around a lot. And it's like, I like the fact that it's like Chopper and Brook and like Luffy are just like, wait a second, he's a pirate and he just like wanders around. You're not even worried about him. And this is before they know that he's like, Dark King Rayleigh, the former vice captain, co-captain of the Roger Pirates. And Rayleigh and Shaki are married. They're also business partners and everything. I don't think she straight up says that they are married, but I know that in like translations, that the translation that they use, that like the certain words that she uses to refer to him and that he uses to refer to her are like the, person, male person, male that lives in my house and female that lives in my house, or like the variations of like, husband and wife. And one of the things that we see is, of course, she does not seem to give a flying frick about where, wherever he tends to roam off to, and like whatever he gambles away and everything. She's like, oh, he'll be fine. It's like, he's mastered hockey. He's got all this stuff. He's fine. I'd like to see some of the guys in this. It's like, I'd like to see if there's a pirate out there that can try to take him or whatever. And like, then they find out that, oh, really sold himself to the auction house to pay off debt and everything. So now you got to go save him from the auction house. Really would have just like literally just walked out of the auction house on his own anyway. He's like, well, I don't want to be a slave, but I had to sell myself, and I just know how to make the collar go away anyway, because I can just, remove it with my hockey before it, blows up. So I'll be fine. And like, so we get that. Then of course we get the whole, Rayleigh just gets this whole badass, awesome entrance and everything. We finally get an explanation as to who he is, and then we see what he can do. And we do get a bit of a backstory in regards to Shaki and Rayleigh, because she states that, she gave up the life of a pirate, 42 years ago. She looks at Luffy and is like, your grandfather used to chase me all around. It was so cute. And I'm just like, okay, so, well, I guess Shaki is not Luffy's grandma. That is kind of confirmed. She's not. She did not end up with Garp. She left. She's with Rayleigh. But it is, we kind of think that Shaki had been on the Rocks Pirates. Rocks D. Zebek, and with, Big Mom and Whitebeard and, Kaido and, Shiki and Captain John and, all these other ones that had all been on this pirate crew. And, I'll leave the fun pronunciation of Wang Ji to Tekken because he does it better than I can. But, we suppose that she was on this crew as well at some point, and that 42 years ago she left. So she was off the crew like before the God Valley incident, whatever exactly happened on God Valley. And she and Rayleigh, because she states that they had been on opposing pirate crews for a long time. And what ends up happening is, of course, eventually she just leaves the pirate crew. She may have been one of the first ones that came to her senses, like, either it's like, okay, Zebek is insane, I'm leaving, and just leaves, or like she just decided that she just didn't want to be there anymore, or whatever the case may be. She just didn't want to be a pirate anymore, and she goes off on her own. And and then later on, when Rayleigh left the Pirate King's crew, well, not when he left, but when the crew was disbanded, because they found Laugh Tale and everything, and then Roger's dying, so Roger goes off on his own, and he goes to find Rouge, and I'll go over that in a minute, or I'll go over that when I'm done with the Silver, Rayleigh and Shaki. But what ends up happening is, of course, Rayleigh and Shaki probably then at that point kind of like reconnect, and are like, oh, well, we used to be on opposing pirate crews, but you were always kind of fun to fight or whatever whenever they would, do that. We know that Rayleigh seems to be quite skilled with his hockey, of course. He's extremely skilled with all of his hockey, with conquerors and observation and, the Ryoro stuff, and with, armament hockey. He's very, very adept with all of that. And I think we also see him fight with a sword. So we know that, Rayleigh has those skills, but we don't know what kind of skills that Shaki had. Obviously, she's able to physically stand up to several pirates that are quite a bit younger than her, given the fact that she's at the very least in her like late 50s, early 60s, or mid 60s, give or take. I don't remember if we get an exact age on her. Rayleigh is at least in his like mid 60s or late 60s, if I remember correctly. I think that was right. And if I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry. I didn't write down their ages for this. That wasn't necessarily something I needed for this. But like they reconnect at some point, and of course they make the bar. They make Shaki's rip-off bar with Rayleigh as like this. They are he's like this business partner of hers. We also learned that they helped protect the Gorgon sisters with the help of a younger Nyan, Granny Neon from the Amazon Lily. Those three kept an eye on the Gorgon sisters after they Hancock and her sisters, after they escaped the Red Line, after they escaped Marie Joie. And we learned that like they kept an eye on them and everything. And I mean, like, I know there's this theory that like Hawkeye Mihawk is like Shaki and Rayleigh's son. I don't know where I fall on that theory. I guess it's a possibility, but I mean, they're both old enough to be his parents, I think, but I don't know where I fall on that, and I don't know if there's anyone, I don't know. We'll find out in the future, I guess, if that is something that is 100% prevalent to the story. But, we don't know what Shaki's skills are. We see Shaki and Rayleigh interact. We also know that Shaki has like a playful side because at one point, and I don't remember if this is just anime only or if this was in the manga, but Brooke asks her like either he asks can he see her panties or what type of panties she's wearing, and she just like she gets distracted at one point, but then she just straight up tells him later on what color panties she's wearing, and he's just like, and Brooke's just like happy, and I'm just like, do not encourage the perverted skeleton woman. That is not a good idea. But, and then of course, 2 years later, after, Shaki sees what happens with Ace and Luffy and everything at Marineford and with Whitebeard and everything, she watches that when that happens. And Sabaody, and of course, she, encourages Rayleigh when he goes and swims off to go to find Luffy and everything and ends up on Amazon Lily, and then he trains Luffy on Ruskaina for, a year and a half, and then he returns to Sabaody after he's trained Luffy everything, taught Luffy everything he can teach him, and Luffy just now has to learn how to use this on his own, better master it on his own. And Rayleigh returns, and the two of them seem, Rayleigh and Shaki seem quite happy with each other. In all honesty, she doesn't seem to have a problem with the fact that he was just gone for like a year and a half or whatever, and maybe didn't even send her any letters or anything like that. Like, we don't have carrier pigeons in One Piece. In fact, I don't think we're ever 100% explained how the mail gets delivered in One Piece. Different video. But, we get to see that Shaki and Rayleigh do have a fair amount of affection for each other and everything, that they do love each other. And I do like that. I would like to hope that later on down the line, maybe like when we get like the flashback for like some more of the Roger flashback stuff, maybe we'll get to see some stuff with like younger Shaki and see like her and Rayleigh together and everything. And, or like see like them flirting while they fight. And maybe we'll get an idea of like, whether Shaki was on Roger or was on the Rocks crew, we don't know that, but she might have been. And if so, what type of, or whatever pirate crew she'd been on, what type of weapons did she use? And I have a bad feeling or a good feeling, depending on who you are, that her and Rayleigh probably end up having some very interesting foreplay. That does not surprise me in the slightest if they did. But I do kind of hope that Shaki shows back up again. I'm sure Rayleigh's going to show back up again. That would surprise me if he doesn't at some point show back up again. Maybe not on Laugh Tale, but like in like the epilogue or something like that, or the prologue, epilogue, whatever. Where we get it, like tying up some knots that he's like, we see him sitting there like reading the paper, and like it's like all over the like. They got the news to Morgan's about like this is what actually happened in the Void Century, and Morgan's publishes it and sends it out, and like Rayleigh's just sitting there reading the paper going, well, now the rest of the world finally knows how that worked. And it's like, oh, time for the red line to come down. We're gonna move now, Shaki. Okay, dear, I've already packed up everything useful. Okay, we're gonna leave now. And then like they leave, and like the red line falls, and Sabaody's like not necessarily useful anymore. Or Sabaody might survive, but the red line's gone. Fishman Island is, brought to the surface or whatever. But it may also be like Shaki's just like there and just like reading the paper with him. It's like, that's actually a good question. Would Rayleigh have told Shaki what the Void Century was about? Like what was on Laugh Tale? I would assume they've been together for the past, 20 some years. I would assume that she may have asked at some point. She seems to be like a person that would be kind of interested in that type of stuff, given how much she seemed to know about Luffy and the rest of the the rest of the supernovas and such. She seems like that type of woman that would be interested in that type of stuff. I mean, she may not be able to do anything with the information, but I would assume that she may have asked Rayleigh, because Rayleigh didn't have a problem with, he was like, told Robin, I was like, I can tell you exactly what's on Laugh Tale at this moment. I can tell you exactly what the poneglyphs say, if you just want to. And then Luffy's like, no, I don't want to do that, because that would, ruin the adventure. And Robin was fine with that. I'm sure Shaki at some point has gone to Rayleigh and said, hey, honey, can you tell me what was on Laugh Tale? What was on the poneglyphs? What was that and everything? And he's probably sat and he told her exactly what it was, what they learned, what Oden read on the poneglyphs, told her tons of stories about Shanks and Buggy and when they had like Momo and Hiyori on the crew, and when they were little kids, and like having Odin there and Toki, and like all these other adventures that they've been on and everything. And I just, and I'm sure that like Shaki and Rayleigh just have like nights where they just like sit in and like, they're just there. I don't know, maybe listening to One Piece equivalent of radio, whatever that was. I don't remember if we get a One Piece equivalency of a radio that doesn't involve a snail, or a Denden Mushi. But it would be very interesting if they're just in there sitting, and like it's like maybe like a birthday of one of the crew, and like Shaki knows this, and like she's written down like every single member of the crew, of the Rogers crew. Like she has like this calendar that she wrote down every single one of their birthdays on, and every year she always makes sure that like on those days, that when Rayleigh is there, they always have like a drink and toast of whatever that member was. um and like maybe when like Shanks show, it's like that just seems like something that was maybe like that's just like her softer side coming through, because we see her softer side a little bit when we see her interact with Hachan, with Hachi, and we see that, and that's always very nice to it's like she can be this like very hard person when it comes to like the people who owe her money that she has no affection for, but then we have Hachan, and she's like, oh, that's fine, I'm so happy to see you, welcome in, come on, let's get some food and everything. And like she seemed to like Luffy quite a bit, and she liked Chopper and Brook and everything, and she liked the rest of the Straw Hats that she met as well, which is very nice and very helpful. So we'll see kind of where that lands, but she just seems like sometimes, for certain people, she is sentimental. For certain people, not for everyone, but for certain people. And really, as her husband, definitely qualifies as someone that she would be sentimental about. And sentimental about his crew, like particularly like Roger's birthday, or when Roger was executed, like very, maybe not like tiptoes around him on those days, but she's like, it's more of a quiet day. That's just you're like if Riley goes off somewhere and then he finally comes back, and she's like, are you okay? Yeah, I just miss my friend. She's like, that's okay, dear. Have another drink. Thanks. I robbed some pirates earlier. Here's their money. Go ahead and go gamble. Thanks. Thanks, Shaki. You always know how to make me feel better. I just think that would be so funny. Just like glimpses into their life. Maybe that'll be a cover page series at some point. The everyday life of Shaki and Rayleigh. All the money's gone again. Okay. I'll go rub some pirates. That's fine. Rayleigh goes off and gambles. And then Shaki is just like, okay, just remember to rob some pirates on your way back. Free some slaves while you're at it at the auction house if necessary. That's okay, dear, I will. Good boy. See you later. I love you. I love you too. Like just doing that to each other like he's leaving. That just seems like something that would happen. So that's what we have for them. So let's move on to our Gold D couple. Our D couple. So this would be Roger and Rouge, of course. Goldie Roger, captain of the Rogers Pirates, king of the pirates. And then Portgas D Rouge. We know that Roger and Rouge were truly in love, and he very much adored her and loved her and everything. But we don't exactly know how they met. Did they meet before Roger left the crew and disbanded the crew and everything? Did they meet before then, and that's why he went directly to the South Blue to where Rouge was? Or did he, had they met, did he just was like, I feel like I'm gonna go to, did he flip a coin and heads I go east, tails I go west? West. Okay, and he goes to the West Blue, and he's like, heads I go north, tails I go south now. Okay, I'm gonna go to that island. And then he just eventually found Rouge. Or did she know him ahead of time? Did they know each other beforehand, and then he headed her way because she was his true love, and he's like, I'm gonna die in a year or so, or however many months. I'm gonna go spend the remaining time that I have with the woman that I love. And he headed off to go be with Rouge. We do know, of course, that Rouge became pregnant, and she cried when upon learning of Roger's death and everything. And she, of course, she then carried Ace in her stomach for 20 months, and was she left Ace with with Garp, of course, and Garp raised Ace. And of course, Garp, we know Ace's opinion of his father, of course. He does not like his father. He never has. I don't think Ace ever would like Roger at this point in time. If he'd been exposed to people that actually knew the real Roger, like if Ace had been exposed to, like, Rayleigh, and if Ace had been exposed to Shanks and to other members of the Roger Pirates and everything that knew Roger and knew him beyond just, oh, he was like this, king of the pirates and this demon and everything and this horrible person, then maybe Ace would have a different opinion of his father. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But we know that Ace, of course, adored his mother. I went over these in the Mother's Day and Father's Day video. But this is more talking about the relationship between Rouge and Roger. Rouge and Roger, as I said, we don't have an exact time frame for how long they knew each other. We don't know if they, as I said, we don't know if they met before, like, Roger went to Laugh Tale. Like, had they met at some point when Roger, because, like, we know that the Roger Pirates explored all over the world. And, maybe they visited the West Blue at some point. I mean, like, South Blue. Sorry, South Blue is where that island's from. If I said West Blue earlier, it's South Blue now. They went to the South Blue. And, of course, where that's from. And there might be this moment where it's like, oh, he went to the South Blue, and, they ended up on the island, Bertilia Island, I think was what it was called. And, found her, and he just, maybe they interacted with each other, maybe they just fell in love. Or maybe Rouge is a former pirate as well. Maybe she had been on the crew for a while, and then before they set out on this last, leg of their trip, and, they took Rouge back to this island and they dropped her off on her home island or so, because she, like, maybe didn't have a bounty, or she wasn't well known to be a pirate, so she would be fine to be left there. Because not every member of Roger's crew had a bounty, because we know that, like, Shanks and Buggy were on the crew as apprentice pirates, but they didn't have bounties. And we know that, I mean, it took a while for, like, Nami and Usopp and Chopper to get bounties, and Sanji and such to get bounties on them. They didn't get bounties until after what happened on Enies Lobby. But it may have just been like Rouge, like if she had been a member of the Rogers Pirates or a pirate in general, it may have been she just never really didn't do enough to, like, gain the attention of, the Marines, and they never gave her a poster. Never gave her a wanted poster. So, like, she was able to go back home, and Roger, when he knows that he's gonna die, he's like, well, I sailed around the seas again. I found Laugh Tale, and I know the true history, and I'm not going to be able to, I won't live to see it and anything, but, like, maybe if I have a kid, maybe they'll live to see it. And then he goes and he, went back to where Rouge was. And, like, maybe that's why he knew where she was, because, like, they had dropped her off there, so many months or a year or whatever previously. And, he then, he goes back to her island, and they, I don't remember if it's ever stated whether or not they actually get married or not, but they do have a relationship, and she becomes pregnant, of course. And, Roger, of course, then leaves to protect Rouge and the baby, and he leaves, and he goes, and he turns himself into the Marines, and, Garp is kind of the one that gets credit for that. And then, of course, Roger tells Garp, I have a son, and you and I both know that I have a child on the way, because he didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl. He's like, I have a child on the way, and if the Marines find out about the child, then they're going to kill him, or kill the child, and you and I both know this. But you and I both also know that a parent's sins do not transfer to the child. And I do kind of look at that as, because Dragon had not started his revolution yet. He had not gone and started the Revolutionary Army yet. We don't know what Dragon was up to at this point in time. But there are theories that, like, Dragon may have been on Roger's crew. There's that theory there that Dragon had been on Roger's crew at some point. Maybe not when they went to Laugh Tale, but may have been on Roger's crew at some point. And, he's, like, making that statement to Garp of, like, your son went off and became a pirate. And, that, you're not responsible for that, but, well, maybe Garp kind of is a little bit responsible for that, because he doesn't seem to be the most affectionate parent, or grandparent. But, Garp, of course, goes and he finds Rouge after Ace is or after you know, Roger is killed. He goes and he gets Rouge and he brings her. Well, would have been nice if Rouge had lived, but no. You know, she dies after giving birth to Ace, and Garp then takes Ace and he raises Ace and then gives Ace to Dawn. And I've been over that in like the Mother's Day video, the Father's Day video for Ace, of course. But I'm sure that for a time, Roger and Rouge were very happy with each other. Um, you know, she she was a very fierce mother, obviously, and given the fact that Roger specifically chose to have a child with Rouge, there was something about her that he definitely knew needed to be passed on beyond just, oh, she's pretty. She was probably very smart, very quick-witted, and a lot of people make the comparison that, you know, for the people that like Nami and Luffy together, and I do happen to be a people that like Nami, a person that likes Nami and Luffy together, that a lot of people make the comparison of, you know, oh, if Luffy is like Roger reincarnated, then like Nami is like Rouge reincarnated. Or, you know, maybe not necessarily that, but maybe not necessarily like reincarnated, but like, you know, Roger had Rouge and therefore like Luffy has Nami, that, you know, she's kind of this guidance there for Luffy in regards to that, and that Rouge was kind of like Roger's true north. Um, and, you know, he made his way back to her, he came back to her, and they, you know, as I said, they were probably quite happy with each other. And, you know, quite happy, you know, just getting to be, you know, a couple for a while. I don't remember if they state whether or not they specifically get married or not, and I'm just blanking on that if they do. I don't think they specifically got married, because that would have been a very much, oh, this woman married Gold D. Roger. It's in the, you know, married Gold Roger, married the Pirate King. It's in all of this stuff and everything. It's legally binding and everything. I don't think Roger would have done that. I think he would have been like, okay, a child is one thing. Us having a child together is one thing. Me being with you is one thing. But we do not need like a document trail that leads back to you being my wife and then you being pregnant and then that child being taken and maybe not just the child killed, but you killed in the process, or you killed as well in regards to the child. Which also brings me to, I feel very sorry for all of those parents who were in that area and who the moms were pregnant during the time frame when Rouge was pregnant with Ace and trying to hide him, and the Marines are there and they're trying to take all the women that are pregnant and trying to figure out whether or not the woman's baby is, you know, Roger's baby. I feel very, very, very sorry for those women and those men, because we don't know what happened to those babies, because One Piece doesn't exactly have the ability to do gene tests, do like DNA tests. I mean, we have the lineage factor, obviously, because we've had that come in thanks to, you know, Sanji and Judge and everything. But at the time frame, unless they went to like Vegapunk and said, hey, do you have a way of us to like identify all of these kids and everything to determine whether or not they're actually the child of Gold D. Roger? And maybe Vegapunk determined, like, yeah, I have this thing called the lineage factor. I can use it to extrapolate whether or not someone has the same genetic code as like this person or whatever. And they're like, okay, like as the babies are born, they like he like developed like basically the basic version of like a DNA test. And, like maybe they specifically had some of Roger's DNA, which just sounds disturbing because we don't know whatever happened to Roger's body. But like that's disturbing. But like, you know, he may have developed something that would be like a DNA test to just determine, you know, a paternity test to determine it's like, well, obviously this is the mother, but let's find out who the father is. And like, you know, they like do a genetic test between like the father that's claiming to be the birth father and like then Roger, and like every single time it like goes to the birth father, it's just like, oh thank God, oh thank God, oh thank God, oh thank God. And then like, you know, because Rouge didn't give birth in that time frame because she stayed pregnant for 20 months, then, you know, she wouldn't have been under suspicion at that time frame. So by the time Ace was born, it was out of the time frame where, you know, biologically speaking, you know, Roger couldn't have been the child because he, you know, couldn't be the father because he'd been captured and been dead for so long that, you know, it's out of that range that Roger would be suspicious, you know, the suspected husband of Rouge's child. Of course, obviously, the Marines were able to figure this out because, of course, when Ace is about to be executed, you know, we have Sengoku up there and he's like, Okay, so not only are you the vice captain of the second unit, or second, or the commander of the second division of the Whitebeard Pirates, you're also the son of the former king of the pirates, of Goldie Roger and Fortis de Rouge, and that is why you need to be killed. Obviously, the government found that out somehow. Maybe it was just like, hey, Sengoku may have like looked at Ace and like, hey, like looking at Ace's like jawline, and I've seen that jawline before. Go find me Vegapunk. Find me some of those genetic tests. Find me those tests that he was using for the. Because I don't think Sengoku was the fleet admiral at the time. I do not think he was the fleet admiral at the time when all of that was going on. That might have still been Kong was the fleet admiral at the time. But then has since then, Sengoku was the admiral for quite a while, but or the fleet admiral for quite a while, but Kong may have been the one that was in charge at the time. And of course, that was also done probably on the orders of the Celestial Dragons, because Roger may have told Rouge, just like I said, like Shaki and Rayleigh may have talked about it. Roger may have told Rouge what was on the final island, what was there. And, if she knew, then if they could find her, then they could stop her from being able to spread it. But also, that would stop, find Roger's child. That would also like eliminate more of that bloodline, more of the D's that they were terrified of. But obviously they found out who Ace's parents were, and because of that, we know about Rouge and everything. Of course, Luffy basically just straight up told, Ivankov, and it was like, oh no, Ace Dragon's not Ace's father. Gold Roger is Ace's father. It's like Buggy finding out that Roger had a child is just one of those moments where it's just like, I didn't know that my former captain had a child. Okay then. So, I don't know exactly what else we'll see with that. We might get more of like a flashback where we get to see more of Rouge. When we get like more of a Roger flashback, we might get more of an explanation as to how they met. How they met, where their relationship started. Did she start off as an enemy, and like Roger just like fell in love with her at some point because she could like kick his butt or something? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But me and the hedgehog, who I need to come up with a name for. My sister had a hedgehog named Buddy when I was a kid. Don't know what happened to Buddy. And she has a hedgehog now that is named Jinx, but I really don't want to name a Pokemon. I really don't want to name it Jinx because that's what my sister's hedgehog's name is. So I guess I'll have to come up with a different name for it at some point. So it's very cute, very very cute. The next video that would be up for this series is probably going to be about Neptune and Otohime. And they might just be their own video, and then I am going to do one about like Kyros and Scarlet, and one about Sai and Baby 5, and then I'll do like there's Lola and Chiffon and Beige and all of them, and like Praline and Aladdin and such. And then I will have ones about like Toki and Odin, and Kinemon and Osuru, his wife. So I will be going over those, but those will be a little bit later on down the line. So goodbye from me and the hedgehog. Maybe she'll have a nickname by the time I do one of these videos again. We'll see. So that's what we have. So I thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Waving ahead. He's probably been meeting women and shacking up here and there, so I'm not worried about his health or anything. I guess picking up and leaving for long periods of time is just what former pirates do.